She screamed and ran toward him like someone possessed by joy. She threw her arms around him, but what happened next pierced her soul. Obina peeled her hands off his body and stepped back. Madam, who are you? The aroma of freshly fried akara danced in the air like masquerades on a village festival day. Chide, a dark-skinned, curvy Igala woman with hands roughened by hard work, flipped the akara balls with the grace of a queen and the swiftness of a hawk. She was known in the community as the Akara Queen, not just for her skill, but because her pap was smoother than deceit and her smile sweeter than honey stolen from a beehive. Her beauty did not shout its song. Skin like roasted palm kernel, voice soft like freshly boiled pap, and eyes that danced like a restless flame. She was every mother's dream and every suitor's chase. But Chide's heart belonged to a man, the village spat, a mechanic, Obinna, tall, dark as palm oil on fire, and handsome like trouble in December. His hands were always stained with grease, but his soul was clean, his heart honest. Every morning, Obina would stroll to Chide's akara shop. Before the sun blinked open its eyes, she had already lit her charcoal pot, frying golden balls of akara while hot pap steamed in wide aluminium bowls. Obina never paid. His coins was his laughter, his loyalty, and the way he stared at her like she was the answer to all his unanswered prayers. But love, as sweet as it may be, is not always a welcome visitor. Oma Igbo, her father once warned, his voice turned like thunder clouds before rain. Igbo is not good for you. Don't marry Igbo. They don't marry, they buy people. Chide had cried that night, her heart torn between love and tribe, but the river of her affection had already overflown its banks. So against her father's wishes, she agreed to marry Obina when he proposed. The entire village waged tongues. She left bankers and businessmen for a common mechanic. Wonders shall never end, some of the villagers said. But Chide didn't care. Obina loved her like morning loves dew. He would close early from his workshop just to fetch water or buy firewood for her shop. And on days the workshop was dry, like Hamatan leaves, Chide would slide naira notes into his hands, whispering, "Eat first, my love. Tomorrow will be fatter." Her wedding was the most laughed at occasion of the year. There was no canopy, no DJ, no flashy cars, just local chairs, rice that barely went round, and a groom who arrived in his faded shirt and rubber slippers. "Is this a wedding or a burial?" someone whispered. Even mosquitoes refused to attend. Another joked. But to Obina and Chide, it was the happiest day of their lives. They danced under the mango tree where they took their wedding vows, and when night came, they made sweet love like never before. Even after the wedding, Obina still came to Chide's akara shop. On days his workshop was dry like a desert, Chide would slip money into his pocket with a wink. "Take this one, just in case your screw no tighten today," she would tease. Obina took full responsibility. He washed her clothes, cooked sometimes, even helped her fry akara on Saturdays. They were two hearts beating in unison until life threw a stone into their peace. They had only been married for 1 month when the winds of fate changed direction. On that fateful Tuesday, the wind of Obina's destiny changed. He was patching up a customer's jeep under the blazing sun when a sleek black SUV pulled into the compound. The door opened and out stepped Miss Ifunanya, tall, elegant, commanding, like money dressed in human skin. Her voice was calm but firm. "My driver left me stranded. Can you fix it?" Obina fixed her car with the precision of a surgeon and the humility of a servant. She watched him, how his hands moved like an artist, how his brow furrowed like a thinker. She was impressed. "Young man, what's your name?" "Obina ma. I need a private mechanic and driver. You will live in the island and I will pay you well." Miss Ifunanya said to Obina. Obina's heart beat fast. Island, mechanic, private driver. It was as if heaven wore high heels and came down to meet him. That evening, Obina rushed home like a boy who had found a golden coin buried beneath red sand. Chide, my love, where are you? He shouted, nearly tripping over the pot of pap. She was staring in front of their small shop. Chide turned sharply, wiping her hands on her wrapper. What is it? You're breathing like somebody who just saw a lion, she said, squinting at him, half smiling. Obina's eyes danced with joy. God has done it, oh! God has done it, my wife. A woman came to our workshop today. Guess what? She offered me a job on the island. Chide gasped. Lagos Island? Yes, Obina nodded. His grin stretching like Lagos traffic line. I'll be working in a big automobile company, and she said she will give me accommodation too. But I declined the accommodation offer, Sha, Obina said. Chide's brows lifted with excitement, but her voice came softly, like water in a calabash. No, now, Obim. You should have accepted the accommodation. At least you can stay there 2 or 3 days, then come back home for the weekend. It will save transport money. Obina hummed, scratching his head like a student considering a math riddle. You are right, Omalicha. But how do I sleep without you beside me, eh? I can't live a whole day without my beautiful wife. They both chuckled, hearts colliding like drums in celebration. Then they hugged, deep and warm, like the embrace of evening breeze after a hot day. They danced right there in front of the boiling akara oil. Their laughter rose to the sky. Even the walls of their small room smiled that night. Little did they know, the wind was already whispering the beginning of a storm. Days passed. Obina resumed his new job. Every weekend, he came back home with small gifts, slippers, wrappers, even a second-hand smartphone. Take my sugar. Small things for now. Better ones go come very soon, Obina would say. Chide was so proud. She would show the gift to her friend Ene and say, look at my husband. Na mechanic wey sabi I marry so. But like water that tastes sweet at first and bitter after boiling, things began to change. Just a month after his new job, Obina started working late. At first, he said the company had long meetings, then he said traffic, then it was car issue, then board members. Every excuse came like smoke, shapeless and confusing. So one night, Chide waited till midnight. He stumbled in with red eyes and cologne she didn't recognize. Obina, what is going on? Why are you always late these days? Chide said to her husband, Biko Chide, I'm working hard to give you a better life. Can't you trust me? Chide didn't argue, but her heart whispered warnings. This lateness character continued until one cold morning. Before the cock crowed, Obina packed a few shirts, shoes, and a small bag. He kissed her forehead while she slept and walked out slowly. No notes, no explanation. He left the way wind escapes through broken windows, silently and suddenly. Chide woke up to an empty bed, scattered wrappers and silence that screamed. His phone switched off, his bag gone, his scent, only traces of it danced with the wind. Chide waited for hours. She thought he woke up and went to work. But when evening came and Obina did not return, then she concluded that he was missing. She became very worried. From one day, it turns to days, then to weeks. Maybe he went to fix a client's car. She told herself, maybe he was kidnapped. Her neighbor whispered, maybe he has traveled abroad. Her friend Ene mocked, but Chide knew something was wrong. She cried rivers, she cursed, she prayed. She stopped going to her akara shop. Even pap refused to rise under her fire. Her friends came to console her, but they also came with poisoned tongues. Didn't we warn you? Spat, see your life, married to a common mechanic apprentice. Now he has used you to climb and dump you. Chide wept in her room, where their laughter once echoed. Every sound reminded her of him. Every morning reminded her of the betrayer. Meanwhile, Obina stood before a mirror, adjusting his tie. A sleek mansion, fine suits, wristwatch that could buy Chide's entire shop. Miss Ifunanya's voice rang from the hallway. Obina, my darling, come, we have to meet the board of directors. He smiled, but there was something hollow in his eyes. He was no longer the humble mechanic. He had become a prince in another woman's palace. They entered a luxury car. The gate flung open like royalty had arrived. But even in the midst of his riches, Obina's heart was noisy. So it all started 2 months ago. One quiet evening, Obina was behind the wheel, driving Miss Ifunanya back to her mansion on the island. The road was smooth, but her face was rough, wrinkled by silent sorrow, like a sky brooding with thunder clouds. He glanced at her through the rear view mirror. "Are you okay, ma?" he asked, his voice calm like river water at dawn. She was quiet for a moment, biting her lower lip as if weighing her pain. Then she exhaled. "It's nothing, just the usual family mess," she said. Obina didn't press. He only nodded and muttered, "Life can be heavy sometimes, but storms don't last forever." His words were few, but they pierced her soul like sunlight cutting through fog. She turned slightly and looked at him with eyes that suddenly softened. She needed someone to really talk to. So that night, something shifted. The next day, she started calling him Obi dear. They began spending time together after work. Sometimes it was dinner, sometimes long conversations under the warm light of her sitting room. She told him stories of betrayal, of loneliness, of a heart that had been broken too many times. One evening, while soft music played in the background and a half-empty wine glass stood between them, she leaned in slowly and whispered, "Obina, be my man. I'll give you the word." Then he froze. His lips trembled. His heart beat like a talking drum. But he didn't say yes. He didn't say no either. And most importantly, he didn't leave. From that night, the red thread of loyalty snapped quietly. Ifunanya promoted him, gave him his own apartment, bought him new clothes that fit like royalty, even credit cards that smiled with limits he never imagined. Obina, once a humble mechanic apprentice, was now shining like a star polished by the hands of fortune. But he never told her about Chide. He never mentioned the woman who once fed him with her sweat and loved him without condition. He buried his truth in silence and fed his guilt with money. So that was the period when Chide noticed the change. Obina began returning home late. His excuses thin like worn slippers. "Work held me up," he would say. "We had late meetings. The boss wanted an urgent report." Chide would sigh, rub her swollen eyes, and serve him cold pap, her heart growing heavier with every lukewarm smile he forced. Then one early morning, while the cock was still dreaming of dawn, Obina picked a small bag, gathered a few of his belongings, tiptoed off the house, and vanished like dew under the sun. He left behind his wife, his vows, his promises, and the woman who would have fought the world for him. And now, Obina is living in gold. He drives luxury cars, eats food cooked by chefs, sleeps in silk sheets, and wears suits stitched by foreign tailors. But beneath all the shine, something in him remains haunted. It's been 2 months since Obina disappeared. The gossips and mocking has reduced, but in Chide's heart, it was still alive, beating like a wound that refused to heal. Days turned into weeks. She waited, prayed, cried, and begged heaven for answers. Obina had vanished like smoke, and nobody knew his whereabouts. But one morning, as she bent over her pot of sizzling akara, whispers started flying like dry leaves in Harmattan. "I saw someone that looked like your husband in town yesterday. He was wearing suit, came down from one fine car." Chai, that boy don't hammer. Chide's ears itched. Her heart raised. What? My Obina? In a big car? She didn't want to believe it, but when the third person brought the same story, her soul could no longer rest. She tied her wrapper tight, dusted her feet, and made her way to the city to find her truth. She stood at the gates of the company someone had pointed her to. Her eyes scanned every man that walked in and out. Just as the sun dipped behind the buildings, Obina came out. Tall, dark, handsome, well-dressed, wearing a clean white shirt tucked into designer trousers. He walked with confidence, like someone who had conquered life. Chide's heart exploded. Obina! Obim! She screamed and ran toward him like someone possessed by joy. She threw her arms around him, but what happened next pierced her soul. Obina peeled her hands off his body and stepped back. Madam, who are you? She froze. Miss Ifunanya, who had just walked out of the building, stared in confusion. Obina, who is this woman? She asked, eyeing Chide. Obina swallowed hard, wiped his forehead and said, I don't know her. Maybe she's a beggar or something. Chide's knees buckled. Her world crumbled. The love of her life had disowned her in front of another woman. Later that evening, she returned to the village in tears. She wept like a widow with no grave to cry on. Ene came and met her lying lifeless on her bamboo bed. So he looked me in the eye and called me a beggar, Ene. Me, who once fed him with the last coin I had. Ene hugged her like a sister and whispered, cry, but don't die, Chidi. Cry, but don't stop living. You are stronger than this. Days passed. Chide didn't open her shop. Her customers knocked and asked, where is Oma Akara? Chide lay flat on the floor, staring at the zinc roof like she wanted the sky to swallow her. And I feel like dying. I have nothing to live for again. But Ene shook her head. Don't talk like that. You are not dying. You are living. You will rise, Chide. You hear me? You will rise again. The next morning, Chide didn't go to her shop, nor the next, nor the one after. Customers came, waited, left, and returned again. Until one day, she opened up to Ene. I don't have the strength again. Why should I say Akara? For what? My heart is tired. But Ene slapped her back to sense. You will get up, wash your face, dust your feet, and go and make your name. If love disgraced you, let hustle decorate you. Then, one morning, Ene showed up with 2 aprons, a broom, and a loud voice. Get up, today we rise. She washed her face, tied a bright wrapper. They both scrubbed the shop from corner to corner like they were scrubbing their life clean. That same week, Chide returned to her Akara shop, but this time with fire in her eyes. She rebranded, she repainted the front, rented plastic chairs and tables, put up a small banner, boldly written, Chide's Delight, Original Akara and Cup. She began giving her customers maximum treatment, served them with trays, napkins, even small bottles of water. Soon, people began to talk. Have you been to that Akara place near the market? That girl's Akara tastes like heaven. She now delivers on Instagram and Facebook. She began to take bulk orders. People came from other towns to buy from her. Chide was rising. Her name was spreading. Meanwhile, Obina was restless after his encounter with Chide earlier. He felt guilty and had sleepless nights, so he drove to Chide's neighborhood. He parked close to Chide's street and watched from afar. Her new setup shone like a small paradise. The laughter of customers filled the air, so it became a daily routine for him. Whenever he felt stressed, he drove down, sit in his tinted car, and watched from a distance as he saw her serving customers, laughing, radiant, glowing like sunrise after rain. Tears gathered in his eyes, but he blinked them back. Sometimes he secretly paid for the chairs and tables Chide hired before Chide could. Other times, he would send a young boy to buy akara and pap for him. He would sit in his car, mouth full, eyes closed, rushing the food like someone running from hunger. He missed her. He missed her Akara. Meanwhile, Miss Ifunanya had fallen deeper into the well of her own emotions. Each time she looked at Obina, she saw the man she had polished, groomed and dressed like a trophy. She was proud and possessive. Soon, her lips began to spill suggestions. Obina, let's make this official. Let's get married. I'm not getting any younger. But Obina paused, his heart suddenly restless. I'm not ready for marriage yet, he said, voice low. Miss Ifunanya's eyes narrowed. The softness in her face began to fade. Suspicion crept into her like a stubborn spirit. She began to monitor him, his calls, his glances, his movements. Ifunanya started ordering him around like a houseboy and talking to him like he was still the apprenticed mechanic she picked from the dust. Then one day, in the middle of a heated argument, her tongue struck like a snake. You think you are something, eh? I picked you from the slums. You were nothing. I washed you clean and made you look like a man. Don't forget where I found you. I picked you up from the slump, Obina. Remember, and now I polished you. You look the way you look now because of me. The money, the cars, the house, the jobs, and you go back every day to the slump. Do you miss there so much, Obina? What do you want? Come on, let's get married. Oh, you want to go back to the slump? Really? You think I don't know? You think I don't know that you go back every day to that place? Let's get married, Obina. Let's get married. Please. Those words hit him like a hammer on dry bones. His chest rose slowly. His eyes turned glassy. And in that moment, Obina broke. You are right, he said softly. You changed my life in ways I can't even explain. I will always be grateful, but I'm not happy, to be honest. My joy is dead. My peace is gone. He took a deep breath and added, my heart doesn't live here, Ifunanya. I tried to manage this, to bury my truth under comfort, but I can't anymore. I'm done. Thank you for all you've done for me, but I am done. He walked into the bedroom, zipped his bag, and walked out of that luxury apartment. He didn't touch the savings she helped him open. He didn't take the apartment keys. He only took what he bought with his own hands, one of the cars he had bought from his salary. That night, without telling a soul, he drove out of the island, back to where his soul had once found peace. Back to Chide, back to his truth. Chide was seated outside her shop, counting her daily sales, when a shadow blocked her light. She looked up. It was him, Obina. No longer smiling, no longer proud, just a man who looked like he left his soul somewhere and came back for it. Chide, he said, voice shaky. Can I talk to you? Chide stood, her eyes still. Customers turned to watch. Ella stepped forward, ready to drag Obina by his collar, but Chide raised a hand. Let him speak. They sat under the mango tree beside the shop. The same tree that once heard their laughter. Obina knelt on the red soil. I lost myself, Chide. I chased wealth and threw love away like old rags. Ifunanya gave me the world, but I realized too late. The world without you is empty. Tears welled up in his eyes. I miss you. I miss your Akara, your words, your peace. I don't want cars. I don't want anything. I just want us. Chide looked at him for a moment. Silence reigned. Then she said, you called me a beggar. Obina swallowed. I lied to protect a lie, and that lie nearly killed me. Please, Chide, I can't live without you. Chide smiled. Then she said, you called me a beggar, Obina. But now, even kings line up to taste my Akara. I forgave you the day I chose not to die. But must I take you back? She paused, looked up at the mango tree, then back at him. Tell me, Obina, if you were me, what would you do? Dear viewers, if you were Chide, would you take Obina back? or would you serve him hot akara and send him on his way? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you, buddies, for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that yet. Like and share. Also turn on post notifications to be notified on our new uploads. Until next time, do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.